But here are the steps to sin that we need to look at. And they can happen in each of our lives. I'll be quick. The first step is fixation. Notice he's now one evening on a rooftop. He'd just gotten up from bed. And he walked around on the roof. You can see maybe his roof is rectangular, maybe it's square. But he's moseying along, peering over the side. You see, Jim's been to Israel. I certainly haven't. But there's a mountain there where his palace would have been on. And he would have been able to look down on everything in the city of Jerusalem. And he was looking around and he was walking and moseying along, so bored. And finally, he saw something that interested him. It was a woman bathing. Now in this world, women and men bathe openly in different parts of this world. Not in America, thankfully. But in places like India, where there are no accessibilities for the poor to their own plumbing, they go to rivers and bathe. Oftentimes, mostly with their clothes on, but sometimes you probably catch a few who get a little wild when they're bathing. Here, its reality is this woman is bathing. She's just had her womanly cycle, if I can say that here. The reason I say that is because it says there in Scripture, she's purified herself because she is now done with the cycle, which also leads up to the fact that David's really the dad. Uriah is gone, her husband. David's there. David is the one who conceives a child in her because she's just gotten over her cycle. But he's fixated on this woman, and he doesn't turn his head. He's looking at her and watching her bathe. So the fixation is the first step to sin. 1 John chapter 2:16 talks about the lust of the eyes. That's my problem. I know it is. I look at a box of Triscuits and cheese, as innocuous as they are, and I eat them. Right, Missy? So Missy's gotten in the habit of not letting me fixate by hiding chips and stuff. We're not buying them at all, which I'm really grateful for. I hate to expose myself. With fixation, lust of the eyes. What are you fixated on right now that you know is wrong? Each one of us has that temptation because, right, James 1:14, we want to and can sin. What are we fixated on right now? It could be profits that are driving you to be a workaholic, a stay-away dad, or whatever it might end up being. Number 2 of the steps, after the fixation begins, you start fudging moral boundaries. David sends out a messenger. Go find out about that woman. She's so gorgeous. You can see a classroom. Hey, buddy, you see that new girl in class? Find out her name. I got to talk to her. It's kind of what David's doing, but with more sinister intent. So he sends a messenger. Who are you? I'm Bathsheba. Oh, Bathsheba. Yeah, you're married to Uriah, right? Yeah, I'm married to Uriah. In fact, she's somewhat related to the royal family of Jerusalem. So the messenger comes back, and this is where he fudges the moral boundaries. Hey, David, this woman's name is Bathsheba. And no, David, listen clearly, she's married, David. You can almost hear the messenger get a little sarcastic with the king. She's married to Uriah. You know Uriah? He's one of your 30 handpicked men, your special guys in the army. You know Uriah, right? Oh, I know Uriah. That's his wife. It doesn't matter to me. I'm fixated. So we start to fudge the moral boundaries of life. It's not really a lie, is it? Yeah, it is. I'm not really greedy. Yeah, you are. And so on and so forth. I'm not quite sure what was in David's heart. He was bored. He's king. He deserves this. He's fought a lot of battles. He's consolidated the kingdom. Prosperity's everywhere. I'm the king. Don't I deserve this? I've worked hard. I'm bored with my other 6 wives. So we begin to rationalize, convince ourselves that it's okay. It's like this credit card commercial, credit card debt commercial, where the announcer basically says, are you in credit card debt? It's not your fault. Well, then whose is it? And that's the way our society becomes. It's not your fault. David, this can't be your fault. You have some little gene back here behind your right ear in your brain that made you do this. That's what we come to. And so he fudges the moral boundaries. Are we fudging anything in our lives? Are we already saying to ourselves, I'm fixated on it, I deserve it, and I rationalize it, I think it's okay with me? I haven't even gone to God yet. 3rd step, after fixation and fudging, we decide to go for it. It says in the NIV that he sent a messenger to go get her. It doesn't mean that literally. It means he sent a messenger to take her. just forcible. It's just a crime. I'm not quite sure where to land on this one with David. Did he rape her? I don't think so. I think it would have been pretty clear about that, so let's throw that out the door. He took her. He wanted her. He's the king. Is she consensual? He's the king. Can I say no to the king? Am I in trouble if I do? She certainly didn't put up a fight, it seems. Not sure what to say about it in the end, but he took her because he wanted to go for it. So they laid together and they conceived a child. It's easier today than in David's time to go for it, guys, gals. He had to at least get up on a roof, wander around, and look for something to tempt him. All we have to do is go to our computer screens, flip it on, start pushing little buttons. And then we can satisfy our lusts. Is the lust shopping? Greed? Covetousness? You can find shopping all over the internet. Is it gossip? I can gossip on the internet. You can't hear me talk, can you? Instant messaging. Even blogging. Did you hear what happened in church today? Or how about adultery? When Christ says it begins in the heart. It begins when we have that first lustful thought like David did. And on the internet there's so much opportunity for that, isn't there? Go for it. I deserve it. Yeah, it might be a little wrong, but I'm fixated. James says when sin is conceived, it gives birth. When lust is conceived, it gives birth to sin. So have we gone for it lately? Not only fixated, not only fudging, but have we gone for it? That's where it really hurts, isn't it? And next week we're going to address what we do when we've gone for it and how we reach this forgiveness of God. Finally, there's the cover-up. We don't always go here, but usually we try to. Just like Nixon, if Nixon would have just stopped with America and said, you know what? I was dumb. I ordered people to break into those Democratic headquarters. I knew I was going to whoop George McGovern in this election, but I just couldn't help myself. I was fixated on this guy. I wanted to destroy him. Forgive me. If he had just said that, he would have remained the president until his term was over. But he covered it up. He got more guys involved. He did more sinister things. And David does the same thing. I have to cover this up. She's pregnant. You see, she came to him a month or more after this illicit event. David didn't come with a guilty conscience in that whole time. She had to say, oh, by the way, David, I'm pregnant. Now what am I going to do? Boy, if I admit adultery, I'm looked bad as a king, and I could get stoned because I deserve it. That's the penalty of adultery. So could she. What am I going to do here? I'm going to cover it up. If nobody finds out, I'm okay. Right? So he attempts to cover this thing up. And he sends guys to go do his dirty work. He tries to get Uriah to sleep with his wife. He tries to get him drunk so he will sleep with his wife. He won't do it. How dare I do it, he basically says to David. So he doesn't confess his sins. He rationalizes his attempts. There are consequences. Numbers 32:23 says, you may be sure that your sin will find you out. How many of you have experienced that one? I have. We think we got away with it. It's only been me and God. I'm pretty far away from it. Then whammo, something happens down the road where your sin that was quietly, secretly done has been found out and you've been injured by it. Somehow, pride maybe something worse. The two consequences are spiritual. God will give out a punishment to David and others involved. It's also your life. David's family is going to go haywire from this point forward. He's a horrible example to his sons. Horrible example in his own family and to the nation of Israel. Forgiveness is God's to give.